All right, let's go take a look at this.
All right, up we go.
So here we are.
Yeah.
What is this?
So this is the upstairs of the office building. You can see, if you look down here, this is the way the downstairs was. So we created all the office spaces. You can see spots in the floor where all the call center folks used to work. So we haven't done much up here for remodeling. And you can see we've got some lights. So we've been focusing on the other side, the back side of the building is our workforce advancement space, and that's where our academies come in. And then throughout the winter, we do training. They're busy in here almost every week. They happen to be in the field today, which is unfortunate, but this is one of the things. It's like build a life with us. And it's not just be a worker, it's build your entire life with us.
On.
And that's these guys that run this workforce development group are so keyed into that build a life. You know, they're teaching these guys how to check into a hotel room. They're teaching them how to go buy breakfast and lunch for a week on a $50 budget. They come back, they teach them how to cook chicken. You know, they teach them how to do laundry. All these things.
Knowing how to cook chicken right is important.
It is.
Well, and I think that's something that, you and I were talking about this here the other day. We assume, especially those of us who might have been taught those things, we assume that other people were taught those things the same way we were.
Yeah.
But that's not accurate. And we need to step up and make that investment.
Yeah, the way Pete and Kevin put it, our workforce advancement team, there's 3 others on the team, but the way they've developed it is we've got to meet them where they are.
Yeah.
We've got to go meet them where they are, because the unfortunate part is that what society is giving us now is not the same thing, more or less. I mean, for the most part, not the same thing society gave industry, all industry, 30, 40 years ago, right? So the skills have not been developed, like how to cook chicken, how to buy groceries on a $50 budget, how to get your laundry done, how to check into a hotel. So we're trying to work on those skills and also make them think about retirement, even at 18.
Yeah.
We have what we call a 401k game. So they're in this class for 30 days.
I heard this. I love this.
So we say that that simulates a career, 30 years, 30 days. And so they get to put money in every day. We match it and add 8% every night.
Come on.
And we have one of our instructors says, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to buy a boat, I want to buy a 4-wheeler. And the other instructor's like, I'm in. So halfway through, the instructor that was early investing says, well, my kids are going to college, so no, I'm going to stop investing. While the other guy's like, I got to catch up. And so those 2 periods, both 15 days, right? The guy that starts out has almost 3 times more money than the guy that started 15 days in. But these guys at the end, they all have a big jar. I don't know, we may see them in here. They all have a big jar that they put cash in. We put cash in. We calculate the 8%, and we put that in. And some guys go through the whole time. They don't put any money in. Some guys put in $1. They can put up to $3.50. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, we tell them, okay, count it all out. And they all count it all out. And we say, okay, that's your money. And the ones that didn't put any money in.
Like cold hard cash right there in the mason jar.
And it ends up being, to the guys that stay right on it, it's about a $500 kind of bonus.
Wow.
And the ones that didn't put any money in are like, wait a minute, you didn't tell us.
And these are the kids going through your academy that you're doing this for.
Wow. They go like, you didn't tell us we were going to get the money. I would have put more in. And we're like, that's the cheapest lesson you're ever going to learn about money.
So tell me these pictures over here, and if you guys can film these, that would be great. These are, what are these pictures here on the wall?
So these are a number of, we don't have all our classes here, but these are a number of classes that came through our academy. I do know that furthest one to the left is the first group, our inaugural academy. And you can see some are smaller than others, like this one has about 5-6 people in it.
Yeah.
And that's a spring academy. Okay. Most of these are immediate high school grads. So they graduate on Saturday and they come to work for us on Monday.
Wow.
That's what most of these are. The smaller groups are people that have already been out in the workforce but decide they want to give construction a try. And that's where Pete is today. He's out with those groups actually working on a job.
Wow.
Today. So we have now, we started with one group in April. And now we have 2 groups in April. He said that the interest has really been strong.
What does this do for the rest of Sargent, that they know, the people that are out there doing the work? You have 600 employees.
About 600, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think that this does them, and it's called Sargent Academy?
Sargent Construction Academy, yeah.
Sargent Construction Academy. They know that that exists in this organization. They know that they're a part of that. What does that do for them, do you think?
Well, I think they see the investment, right? They see that we're not just investing in bulldozers and excavators, we're investing in the people.
Yeah.
And that's one of our core values, the very first core value, for a reason. And knowing that we're investing in the youth of the company, so that when these guys, if they're, let's say, a 40-year-old guy, and he's seeing these 18, 19, 20-year-olds come in, that someday he's got to get paid out.
Yeah.
Because we're an employee-owned company. So he's earning stock every year at the price that gets revalued every year. So he's going to have to get paid out. If there's nobody coming along, the train comes to an end, right?
Yeah.
So they see it as an investment, not just in the company for the company's value, but also in their eventual buyout.
Wow.
And it's really turned into the type of thing where the older guys are starting to see this as like they need to invest in those guys too. It's not just, well, the company invested and I can have my attitude. It's like, we want your legacy. If you're 60 years old and going to be retiring in 2 years, we want your legacy to be developing these people, and your legacy can last in this company for another half century or more.
Come on. Well, here we are 100 years, and your grandfather, Herb, his legacy is still producing.
Oh yeah, it's
still
cranking along,
producing.
yeah.
Can you
It's
walk
like
me
a
down?
nuclear thing. It's always going to work.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are. What am I looking at here? I mean, I know what that is. I've seen that on the job site. So what's going on here?
So here you'll see a number of different things, a lot of tools, we've got grade stakes here because these guys have never seen a grade stake, they don't know what it is. So we teach them what the grade stakes, what the marks on the grade stakes mean. We'll teach them how to do basic layout of like a square and a rectangle and a triangle, and how to figure the hypotenuse and all that sort of stuff. Different tools. You can see over here, gets kind of granular here, but one of the best things we do is we provide these holsters, and that's intended for their field book, their magic marker, their 6-foot ruler, and a couple pens, and other things that we want them to always have on hand.
I love that.
Now, I know you recently did a podcast, and a guy said, I want my guys to have a tape measure all the time.
Yes.
So we give them this, and we want them to have the ruler all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what this is. And then as we roll back around here, looking down through here, this is just set up to show them how to raise frames and grates on catch basins and manholes. We've got some sandbags over there to help when we want to put things up off the ground. We've got sandbags here. You look over here, and we've got, they do calisthenics every morning, and so we try to teach them, like, you need to keep your body in shape. We have a pretty strong wellness program with our team. So they've got bands, like in a hotel room, you can have bands like that.
Yeah.
And just close them in the door and do a little, I mean, it's not a workout, but just kind of keeping your middle body, your core strong and your shoulders strong, so that when they're out there shoveling and doing their work, that, they're in good shape to do that.
So, I always say I want to have an honest conversation. And I believe that honesty is not transparency. It's not telling everybody everything.
Yeah.
Because I think that's foolishness. But it is not hiding anything. And so in the interest of what you're talking about there and the importance of that, it is even far more essential when you make a transition. Earlier in my career, I made a transition to being in the office, and then I would go out to the field. And I did not, and I still don't to the extent that I should, but I recently have realized, because I'll be out in the field and I'll be like, hey, I'm going to show you how to do this. And then I go home and I'm like, why does that hurt? And this is so important to continue to do that, because you really begin to atrophy if you're not taking care of those things.
And one of our superintendents pointed out, we do all this training on how to do this and how to carry grades and measure and all this stuff. But if our guys are on a period in the wintertime of not a lot of activity, we don't do anything to get them back in shape, to come back to work. And that was one of the things we try to focus on now is when these guys are coming back to work in the spring, it's like, okay, let's get back. And we don't make them do anything. We're just like, okay, let's show you all these again. And we have a trainer come in that shows them a number of different exercises they can do, just body weight exercises. and flexibility exercises that really help them get back into shape as they come back into the workforce every year.
Wow. Well,
That was the superintendent's idea.
Well, that's the other thing that I love about collaboration. You and I were walking around your office earlier, and you were showing me different spaces that you guys have created for collaboration, and that's where creativity really breathes. And also, you mentioned, well, you said you don't want them just to talk about work. You want them to talk about life.
Yeah.
Because then when you're working with that person, you're aware of their life.
Right.
Because that really is what this is all about.
So one of the things we really believe is you can have creativity, you can collaborate, but it only works if you feel safe enough to be vulnerable with an idea.
Yeah.
If you don't have an environment where people feel safe to give you an idea, that's one that flunks.
Yeah.
And we were sitting downstairs in a strategic planning meeting 5 years ago, I think. And there's one of the guys in the group that is somebody I've spent a lot of time with, and we get on each other all the time. And he came up with this idea, hey, we could have a big workout facility upstairs. And I said, Doug, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. and when we broke, our CFO, Tasha, came up to me and she said, I just want you to know that you just told everybody not to say a word.
Wow. Herb.
And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, when you told Doug that was the stupidest idea you ever heard. And I had to go back to the table and I had to fall on my sword and go, listen, I want to be clear. Doug and I know each other really well, and I was just really dumping on him for fun.
Yeah.
I want you guys to know you can say whatever you want here.
I want to say two things to that, and we can walk down here while I'm talking. But one, I've heard a lot about Tasha as I've talked with you. So one of my biggest regrets of this trip is that I'm not getting to meet her.
Yeah.
Because she sounds like the real deal.
Yeah, she really is. I mean, we're blessed with such a great team with Eric as the president CEO and Tasha, and everybody's aligned to those values.
Yeah.
And those panels I showed you in like our strategic plan, everybody's aligned with that, and it shows in our results, and it shows in every year when we announce our stock price, it shows. But nobody's afraid to call each other out.
Yeah.
That's
one of
the beauties.
Really important. And
for Tasha to come to the CEO and say, you just told everybody not to say anything.
Well, and that's the other thing that I want to touch on here, because I've done things like that. Because when you're a founder or you're a CEO, and you have a very interesting role because you have a 100-year company, but yet you are a founder.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting story that we should probably get into a little later. But one of the things that I think founders really struggle with is we speak our mind all the time.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, and it sounds like Tasha encouraged you to do this, when we do that and we speak our mind and we do it in front of people and we communicate to everybody, when we are addressed on it later, privately, when we correct ourselves, we owe
That's
it
a strength in it.
Yeah, but we owe it to do it publicly as well. If you address someone publicly like that and did that, then it's not something where you go to their office and you say, hey, I'm sorry that I did this. No, you address it the same way that you did it the first time. Otherwise, it really doesn't take any effect. And people need to see that we are owning those mistakes.
The other thing, I think, as founders, that and entrepreneurs, the brain is always going. Like, what can we do next? Let's try this, let's try this, let's try this.
Yeah.
And it's really important to have people to say, slow down, bub.
Yeah.
You need to think about what we're already doing.
Yeah.
And let's not, everybody's going to break if we keep adding on.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of feedback I got, from Tasha and Eric and the other parts of the team. It's like, we're doing enough right now. Like, let's put this out 6 months and talk about it again.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
So here we've got, a little coffee station, and
coffee is a very important part of construction.
All the tools that they need, the first aid kits, shovels, brooms, sledgehammers. I learned to run one of these very well. As I did the end chains and how to take care of chains. They own this chain.
Okay.
So it's important. Like that chain is, I'm gonna guess, $500 with set up the way it is.
Yeah.
And when it's set off to one side and somebody forgets it and a bulldozer runs over it or whatever, So we're just trying to keep everybody real on that stuff. You can see there's some plywood boxes around. and this is what we have them build, and it's kind of like a Pilates type
Yeah.
of thing where they can do step ups on the box and that
Yeah.
sort of thing, and you know, those kind of body weight exercises we talked about. A few spots just to kind of sit for guys to gather up, and then more tools over here. This is mostly layout and that sort of stuff, although we do have our tripod for confined space entry here, and the winch so they're all trained on that sort of stuff. They're all trained on how to use the lasers. Up here we have test balls for water lines and the airlines for that. Tape measures, just everything they need to learn to do basic layout. And down here at the bottom, you probably can't see them that well, but those are just sieves to sort gravel through to see if they meet spec. And we don't want them to be soil engineers. We want them just to understand.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody says that gravel doesn't pass spec, what they're talking about.
That context is important.
Yeah.
For sure.
So over here now we've got more tools. We got a bunch of scales in here, so they teach them how to read the blueprints and just basic safety tools and that sort of thing. A few laptops, and then this is the classroom area where they go through a number of lessons and then they go do it practically next.
Wow.
So they'll talk about this is how you tap into a water main, and they'll talk about it. They'll show some pictures in the classroom here, and then they'll come over here and actually do a tap on a water main, and then they'll show them how to test that water main. So they'll blow it up to 5 psi or whatever it is that it's got to hold. And then over here, those are kind of fake manholes that we show them how to set up the pipe laser and get grades in, and they'll show them actually how to mortar in the ends of the pipes so that they get leak proof.
So you really teach them routine, structure, and ownership.
That's the key. It's like
Yeah.
you'll see here routine and structure on the walls, is over here routine and structure, and over there proactive, not reactive. Mm-hmm. And it's really about, okay, we've got to be ready.
Yeah.
And we've got to have our tools ready. We've got to have our tools as we're progressing, say installing a pipeline. We want the tools in the same place, every piece of pipe. So we're not looking for it. Everybody knows exactly where it is. The excavator operator knows where it is, so he's not dropping dirt on it. The top man knows where it is, so he knows where to go to hand it down in the hole. And it's the same. It's just that routine. Realizing also that every job is different.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to adjust those routines even between different things on the same job.
Yeah.
If we're doing deeper pipe in one section than we are in another, then we've got a different set of trench shields and that sort of stuff.
I love it. So I'm going to be doing a podcast with a gentleman here.
Chandler Plante.
Chandler. Yeah. So what can you tell me about him before I go sit down and have a real and honest conversation?
Chandler's he's a thoroughbred, and he came through our academy as a high school graduate, came through the academy. And really, I mean, we've had people they want to pour into this kid.
Come on.
And we've got people that came through the academy 3-4 years ago. They're like, I want to pour into Chandler.
Come on.
And this thing has really begun to gather steam, because those people that are now, say, 10 years into it are like, I want to bring those guys in. I want to teach them. And they'll want them. Like, I want them all summer, not for 2 weeks. I want them all summer.
Yeah.
And we know the guys that are good teachers and good mentors, and we try to team them up with a mentor as soon as they come out. Like, this is the guy you're going to be responsible to make happy and to learn from.
Well, I mean, that mentorship, I think, is key. And that's one thing that we need to, as the older generation, those of us who have been there and done that, we have to take the time to make that investment. You and I were talking about a gentleman last night that was like your number one guy when it came to operating.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't have taken the time to communicate to him how that matters and what it means, there would have been such a lost, and this is the thing that I really want to drive home with this, lost revenue. Like we talk about business, and this stuff that we're talking about can seem touchy-feely or soft or fuzzy, but it's like, no, it's really about being a effective company all the way around.
Yeah, and our folks know, I mean, we've taught this, that if we can improve our efficiency by 10%,
yeah.
So let's say instead of getting 100 feet of pipe in the ground, we get 110 feet of pipe in the ground.
Yeah.
If we can improve efficiency by 10%, it improves our bottom line by 30 to 40%.
Come on.
And
wow.
And now this these senior guys like the one we talked about, he's really a bear around the young guys, and he's like, why do I have to deal with these guys that don't know what the hell they're doing? It's like, well, everybody in the world, every contractor in the world is dealing with the same problem we are.
Come on,
the question is, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want that
That's right.
legacy to be, I worked here 35 years and I left?
Yeah.
Or do you want your legacy to be, I worked here 35 years, in the last 5 years I decided to pour into these young guys, and your legacy lives on now because they learn, they're going to pour on, and it just keeps repeating and repeating. Yeah. And 2 years after I had that conversation with this particular guy, I had several of these conversations. 2 years after that conversation, went to a job in Western Maine, and there's a young foreman, and I went up to him thinking I was going to get a bad report on this operator, and I said, "How are you getting along with Stevie?" And he said, "Great, we're going fishing this afternoon after work." And that filled my heart up so much to hear that Stevie is now taken a 180-degree turn from being a badass with these guys and drop kicking them all the time, to now he's actually pouring them into after hours.
Well, and let me say this, you and I were also talking about being humble and having humility the other day. So you're probably not going to like what I'm going to say because this is directed at you, but
oh, good.
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened with Stevie if you wouldn't have taken the time to be like, you know what, I need to go have a conversation. Because you told me the story and you were in a room where people are saying, well, this just isn't working.
Yeah.
And I think there's so often as leaders of organizations, we have to not just, we need to take a beat and take a moment and go talk with the individual and be like, what's really going on here? It's our job to uncover what's happening before we just go, we can't make that work.
It's important, and I think we could have sent a superintendent to talk to him, and it probably wouldn't have landed the same.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, but I knew him and he knew me, right? He knows my best interest is in him and vice versa. And it's like, if we just change our mindset just a little bit, change it 15 degrees, and then all of a sudden the rest of it turns. Right?
Well, and talk about that, like, how old were you when he started here?
That particular guy, I was probably 30.
Okay.
But we do have a guy.
You told me a guy that you were.
We do have a guy that just retired this year that started here when I was in the second grade.
So when you talk about why it lands different, why it hits different, it does matter that your name is the name that's on the shirt. It does matter that it's your grandfather. And I think it's important for those of us who found things and start things, or maybe are connected in a deeper way, to recognize the importance of that and how effective that can be.
I think probably the basis of it is that he took time to come see me.
Come on, exactly.
I think that's really it. Like, if he took time to drive 60 miles to see him and talk, then I must feel like it's a pretty important thing.
And he is important.
Yeah.
And it is important to do that. Well, Herb, I'm really looking forward to talking to this young man. I appreciate your time. We're going to get into these podcasts here today.
Yeah.
So, Chandler, welcome to the line. What's your full name here for the podcast?
My name is Chandler Plante.
Chandler Plante. Okay.
Yep.
And we're here in Bangor, Maine at Sargent Corporation, or just Sargent. I'm just looking up at the wall, seeing the different names and the genesis and the exodus of where they begin and go. And right now, the current name is Sargent. So, so we want to just sit down here with you and talk about what you do here, because I just got done having a conversation with Herb about the Sargent Academy. And that's something that you've gone through. So, again, welcome to the line, and let's just have a real and honest conversation.
Sounds great.
Tell me a little bit about your origins. Like, before you went to that academy, where do you come from? Where are you from? Are you from this area? All that stuff.
So I grew up in the Norridgewock-Skowhegan area originally.
I don't even know if I could say any of those words right.
Yeah, they're both hard ones. Yep. I went to Skowhegan High School. When I came through Skowhegan High School, I've always been a motorhead, involved in mechanics, stuff like that. So I did automotives type program, and I thought that's where my career was going to go. But my father has worked for Sargent since before I was born. He's a truck driver for us. And coming up to the graduation of high school, I was aware of the training program through the academy, and extremely interested in it, and kind of led me this way. You know what I mean?
What you know, I mean, I feel weird asking you this question because on the wall behind you I'm going to ask you, well, what was it that interested you about it? But I'm looking at these pictures and it's like, oh, it's all interesting.
It is. Yeah, very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah. What triggered that in you?
I mean, as
The
a
catalyst, since you were going to be a motorhead. What was the
Yeah.
catalyst?
I don't know, as a kid, I mean, mini bikes,
Yeah.
go-karts, things like that. I was just always right into it, wanting to fix things, you know, things with motors. My father used to let me drive the lawnmower around the yard just because I enjoyed it as a little kid, you know, things like that.
Oh my gosh.
Always enjoyed being outside, though.
Yeah.
You know, that was a big part of it. And now having worked at Sargent for the amount of time that I have, I can't imagine going to a job that I go to the same place every single day. I couldn't do that, I don't believe, for the rest of my career.
I think that's one thing that's very interesting about our industry and construction in the trades is our projects are never in the same place.
Never.
You know, and it's like you might be somewhere for a year, maybe two, you know, but it's like, honestly, by that time, I've been on some bigger projects, and once it gets over a year, I'm ready to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, I want to experience, and it could be the coolest project in the world. I was on a project once where we were, I gotta be careful, I don't know how much of it I'm allowed to talk about, but we were doing a project for the United States Army, and we were doing underground bunkers where they stored they stored nuclear weapons, they stored other weapons. They didn't tell us what they stored. We just knew that they stored different things. At certain points, we weren't allowed to drive past the doors, depending on what they were putting in there. And that was one of the coolest jobs ever. But I remember we were putting infrastructure in, and it was like out in the woods in the middle of nowhere. And I can remember thinking how awesome it was when I started, and then I can remember being about a year into it and being like, yeah, all right, I've seen everything I need to see here. Like, I want to go to the next job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Done with this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's one of the things that's really cool about this industry is that you get to experience things like that. You get to be a part of different things. So with Sargent, you started by going through their academy. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like and what that did for you. What was it that, you know, how did it reinforce? What did it affect in Chandler that made this continue?
A big part of the academy, at least the academy has evolved over time. It was almost 7 years ago that I came through it, but when I came through it originally, they put us up at a college that's nearby.
Okay.
So part of it was you were getting the experience of what it's like to live on the road, not, you know, be still at mom's house.
Yeah.
You're out, you're on your own, you're showing up to your job every day. That kind of opening you into it, and you're not just sent to a job site halfway across the state.
Yeah.
Go find the hotel. You know what I mean? It gives younger guys, it give you an opportunity to tiptoe in, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a big part for me.
Sounds like a huge investment from them to do all of that.
Massive investment from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only do they want you to succeed, but they believe that you can succeed. You know, it's, yeah.
What does that do for you as a young person? I mean, I can remember starting out life when I was younger, and it's like everything was new. And you talk about they believe that you can succeed. I can remember people in my life and how that affected me, but like when you're going through the academy and you're realizing that they believe that in you, what does that do in your mind? You know?
It's extremely empowering, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially coming from people that you know are ridiculously successful, have seen it all, and they look at, you know, I was 17 at the time. I think academy kids now are 18 when they get brought in, but to look at a 17-year-old high school kid and believe that, you know, they're going to have the ability, they're going to go out and continue the greatness that this company, you know what I mean, all of them have completed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's one thing that organizations and companies, there's not everybody does it this way. But Sargent isn't the only one that makes this investment. They're not the only type of organization out there. And the reason that we want to highlight these things are, this is what we need to do. This is how we lift the view of the skilled trades. This is how we invest in the next generation and pouring into people and building into people that they know that we believe that they can succeed. And your success affects more than just you when you make that investment. What are some of the things, you talk about, they taught you about a hotel and whatnot, but when we just took a tour with Herb upstairs here of the academy and some of the things that they do, when you were there, what were some of the other things that they walked you through? Like, was it out on the job? What did it look like?
They taught us everything from real skills to use on the job, but they even broke it down to, if you're walking across a site and you're crossing in front of a dump truck or a piece of equipment, you're not looking down at your feet. You're not dragging your feet. You're walking with a purpose.
Come on.
You're looking where you're going. Which are the kind of things that I don't think a young person is going to really put together and think about on their own. But when you step back and you can look at someone else, you can, get an idea as to, if you've got your head up, you're walking like you've got something to do. You're keeping your value. You know what I mean? You're not.
Yeah.
Someone looks out at you across the job site, they know that you're on it.
Yeah.
And explaining that to a young guy,
yeah,
I think is extremely valuable to be able to have all those conversations before they get there.
So talk to me about one thing that we talk about a lot is the importance of explaining, taking the time to mentor and to invest. So your teachers, your mentors, your instructors in the academy, how did they communicate that to you? Like, how did they tell you to walk with purpose? Give me some examples of what that was like.
The real example I remember is, you pull up to a crosswalk and, the person gives you a little wave and they walk quickly and they try to get out of your way. You know that they're trying to respect your time. They just don't even really look at you and they fumble their way across the street. You know that they probably don't care that you're sitting there waiting for them or that they respect your time. You know what I mean? And that really easy way to look at it.
Yeah, that's a really good example. So you go through the program. How many weeks was it?
It was 3 weeks when I came through it.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it all classroom time, or is it also they could take you out in the field at all?
Very mixed. Yeah, it was
Very
half and
mixed.
half pretty much every day.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely.
What are some of the coolest when you were in the academy? What were some of the coolest experiences out in the field that you had?
Closer to the end of it, they took us on a couple of tours on different job sites. So getting to see some of the active work was really cool. But even, I don't know if you guys went over to our shop just up the road.
Okay.
But
no, we haven't seen that.
So big parts of the road on the shop needed to be repaired.
Okay.
And our crew, again, it was a dozen high school kids, cut out all the pavement. They brought in a hot box. We shoveled. We tamped it. And then to be able to be done and look back at it.
Yeah.
And we actually achieved something in our training that, is valuable.
Well, it's
huge.
Tremendously valuable.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if it was just me, but when I was younger, I learned best by doing, and that's such a great example of, that you're doing that at their shop. It's pretty safe. If you screw up the pavement at their shop, okay, you're going to get made fun of for the rest of the time until it gets fixed. But the reality is it's not for a client. It's not for a public road. It's a great place for you to learn that stuff because learning actually is a huge part of making mistakes, walking through that and processing through that and making mistakes in a safe environment.
Absolutely.
And so that's really cool that they gave you that opportunity and that you were able to do that. So tell me a little bit about, so you go through that academy and then you're still in school at this time? It's just over the summer or you're a graduate? It's like a gap year or what?
No, I actually, academy started, I think 2 days after I graduated high school.
Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty quick to get it started right after graduation was how it went for me.
Well, you must be really smart. You graduated at 17? I'm impressed.
Yeah, some kids graduate at 17, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not me. I was not that smart. I was definitely not that smart. So let's fast forward a little bit now. Would you say 7 years into it? When you're coming out of the academy, did you know at the end of the academy that you wanted to be at Sargent?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Really. What was the number one thing that the academy taught you that you're coming to the end and you're like, this is where I want to work? What was the thing that stood out to you about that?
A lot of the culture in Sargent is kind of open. It doesn't really matter where you start from.
Okay.
There are a lot of upper management guys here that started as laborers.
Wow.
And they're right at the top.
Wow.
And they were glad to bring those people in, have them talk to us. I mean, have people from all likes of the company come in and talk to us. But when I came up through, I originally thought that I wanted to be a foreman.
Yeah.
I was a foreman for almost a year.
Wow.
And then I came to the company. I said, hey, I'm not necessarily happy with the position that I'm in. I'd like to try getting in equipment. And it was a period of time. They worked with me. You know what I mean? It wasn't a snap of fingers and I just jumped into a piece of equipment. But within close to a year, I was most of the time in equipment.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And they were willing, like I said, to make that transition with me and let me find where I wanted to be happier. I've seen people that go from estimating to working in the field. I've seen people go the other way. I've seen a lot of different opportunity for you to find what you want to do here, which is really cool.
Wow.
Yep.
So Chandler, tell me, you talk about the values and the core values, and I don't think any of them are in your eyesight here in this room. So
I don't think so.
Yeah, I've seen them all over the place, but talk to me about what those are, if you can. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here
A little bit.
but you've been here 7 years. You're talking about that being a part of Sargent's culture. Walk us through those values a little bit.
I'll start with my favorite one is do what you can with what you have where you are.
Do what you can with what you have where you are.
Yep, absolutely. So that
I
means,
like that.
we might not have the exact tool for the job or the right material that we might need or whatever, but you're at least putting in an honest effort to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a big one that I really appreciate.
Why is that your favorite?
People like to look for a reason that I can't. You know what I mean?
Come on.
People love that.
Come
People
on.
love to, well, we can't because of this.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want to hear that we can't because of this. I want to hear, well, maybe if we,
Yeah.
that's
I do.
a
I love
massive
it.
difference in the field.
I love it. And why do you think, what is it in people? Why do they look at it that way to come up with a reason that they can't? What's going on? What is the question or the statement behind the statement? I know I'm digging deep here.
I know what you're saying, but
yeah.
usually it's, I don't want to, really,
Yeah.
realistically. Yeah. It's, and through that being part of the culture, it kind of, you're reading out the people that, don't have that. They have the drive that they're trying to succeed. They're trying to complete things. They're not looking for an excuse to not, or, you know what I mean?
Well, and if that's a value and you guys like eat, sleep, breathe, live your values, this is one thing that I've learned about values in a company when you don't just put them on paper. People kind of self-select, or they're like, if that's not a value that someone's okay with, then maybe this isn't the place for them. And honestly, that's not a wrong thing. It's just, hey, that's something that's important to us that we want to do. I mean, that's pretty essential. And in construction, in the trades, no matter what trade you're in, because we're always like transient or moving from job to job, it's like, I can remember times showing up to a job and not having what I needed to do the work and needing to, like, there's two options. You say the core value again for me.
It's do what you can with what you have where you are.
Okay. There's two options. You can do what you can with what you have where you are, or you can give up and you can sit there. You're not getting paid to sit there. In the industry and what we do, we're getting paid to solve problems. I'm looking at these pictures on the wall behind you, and it's like, I can guarantee you every one of those job sites that's in those pictures, there were problems that there wasn't a plan for, where something came up and they needed to figure out a solution. And they probably didn't have what they need right away. Yep. And the importance of us having that perspective in what we're doing and how we look at things is essential. So tell me some of the other core values that they have here at Sargent.
One of them is that we will be faithful stewards of the Sargent legacy.
What does that mean?
It means a lot, really. It means that you respect and you put effort into keeping the good image and the good, the good morals, the good parts of this company, that you are going to put in effort to continue this company like on the good path that it's on.
Yeah.
Respect the amount of work and effort that Herb put in to make this company what it is today.
And we're not talking about the herb that I was talking about earlier. We're talking about the herb that was starting this over 100 years ago. Yeah.
Well, really, both of them. They both did a lot to keep this
Yeah.
company alive.
Well, I think that's something that is pretty amazing to me when I hear the story of how Sargent continued to exist. It's really a story of tenacity and refusing to give up.
Absolutely.
Refusing to be like, well, I don't have what I need to do that. Like, I mean, Herb is the Herb that I talked to earlier today. Got a very interesting story about how he's a founder, but yet he also is operating an organization, or it was, that, started over 100 years ago. I mean, a century of building. And you guys are celebrating that here tomorrow. That's kind of awesome.
It is really sweet.
Yeah. Are you going to be there? Are you going to be a part of that celebration?
Absolutely.
Are you excited?
Yep, I wouldn't miss it.
Do you feel like that legacy is now Chandler's legacy?
In a way, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I mean, I would like it to, by the time I'm getting to retirement age, I would like to be one of those guys that, laborers look up to. I want to be an operator like Chandler.
Yeah.
I want to, or guys, remember, you look back and you think about the good operators you've worked with over the years.
Yeah.
And absolutely, to be one of those people, one of those names that's regularly thrown out that, so-and-so does great and they always work hard and I can't wait to work with them again on another project. You know what I mean?
What makes a good operator to you here at Sargent? What are the top two things?
The top two things that make a good operator. Well, one is always the willingness to figure out a better solution.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about.
Absolutely.
That's a
I love
huge
that.
one.
Yeah.
And then another one is time management. Time management, I feel like, can be harder in a piece of
Yeah.
equipment
Yeah.
because you get removed from the item in a way. You're in the cab. You're working with what's right in front of you.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So especially if you're on a site where, I've got this main task that I'm working on, but I've got a little side mission I've got to do before the day's over. I've got to make sure I get to at some point. A good operator can keep track of all those kinds of things. They keep track of the time. They, you know what I mean? Pay
Yeah.
attention to all those things,
Yeah.
truck cycles or whatever it ends up being that gives them the opportunity to do the extra little things in between.
Yeah.
I think is what makes a good operator.
So Chandler, what's a tool or a piece of gear that you just can't live without? Something that you have every day that you need in life every day.
Piece of gear that I need every day.
Yeah, it can be, gear can be your boots, a jacket,
Oh, gotcha.
A tool. A tool can be a ruler, a hammer. I don't know.
Yep.
But what is something in those categories that you use every day that you just can't not have?
Absolutely a pair of good boots.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta
Tell me
have good
why.
boots.
For those who are listening that don't understand the job, that don't understand what we're doing, what is it about a good pair? Which I agree. Like when I was an apprentice, and this is no jab against Walmart, but I didn't have a lot of money, and I went to Walmart and I bought a $50 pair of boots.
Yep.
That was the worst thing that I could have done.
Absolutely.
And I mean, other boots, they were hundreds of dollars.
Yep.
And I'm like, I can't spend that kind of money on boots. So with that, and I don't want to give my opinion to that. I now do not buy $50 boots. What is it about a good pair of boots that is so important in the job that you do?
I mean, you live in your boots. You spend significantly more time with your boots on than you do off. I feel like that's the truth, right?
It is. It truly is. Yeah.
So for them to be comfortable, that they're never going to give you sores, especially if you can spring for waterproof boots.
Oh, yeah.
It makes a massive difference.
What are you wearing here today on this carpet floor?
These are Red Wings. These are the Gore-Tex lined ones, the Cadillacs. But like I said, I believe in good boots.
Yeah.
I think it's more than worth it.
So those are the exact, minus one thing, that was the exact boot that I had when I worked in the field.
Really?
Except they were loggers.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm a short guy, so I needed every bit of help that I could get.
Yep.
So, yeah, I loved them. I'm wearing Red Wings myself right now.
Yep.
So, yeah. We okay? Did we have a little snafu there?
We're all good.
We're all good. I can't see what's going on behind me, so who knows? So let's talk about what are you doing here at Sargent now? You know, Herb brought you in, said you need to sit down and talk with this guy. You're operating. Tell me a little bit about the day in a life on the jobs that you're on right now and what you're doing.
So right now I've been out at our quarry. We're building a new pond over at the quarry. I've been running bulldozer.
Okay.
So every morning we all report into the office, kind of go over the game plan, make sure everybody knows all the hazards on site, regular kind of stuff. And then I report back to my piece of equipment.
Okay.
Every day our operators are expected to go through your piece of equipment. That's checking the oil, checking the coolant, pads, everything. You know what I mean?
That's all the operator's responsibility.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And then greasing your piece of equipment. During good season, we do it in the mornings, but where it's still cold weather, we do it at night, so the equipment's exercised some.
Okay.
Yep. And then...
so talk about, for those who don't understand or don't know, why does that matter? Like you know, as we're up here in Maine, you guys get a little bit colder weather than some other parts of the country.
Absolutely. Yeah. When a machine's been worked all day, it kind of limbers up. It's kind of like you are, or I am. You know, you got to stretch it, you got to flex it, you got to make it move around, and that makes it take the grease into all those joints a lot better. If it was just first thing in the morning, freezing cold, it was, you know, -10, let's say an extreme, it was really cold out, and you just pump grease into that machine that hasn't moved in days, it's not going to take the grease. For one, the grease might not even be able to go in because it's so cold that it won't.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It gets hard. It gets extra hard when it's cold. And then if the metal is so cold, we actually, when it gets really cold in the wintertime, we switch over to a different grease that'll actually stick. Because typical equipment grease, if your equipment is like negative, like below zero, you could wipe it right on the side of a bucket and it would roll right off. It doesn't even stick when it's that cold.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So like, and why is, and listen, if you're an operator and I'm asking these questions, you're like, wow, you're really dumb. I am really dumb. But there are other people listening that might not know. Why is grease so important with machines?
Oh, because pretty much every joint on, especially like an excavator or a bulldozer, is just a metal on metal socket.
Okay.
Right? Or a pin that's through a pivot.
Okay.
So the machine is, you're riding on the grease.
Right.
Right? The metal is riding on the grease between the other metal. And when that grease runs out and you've used it all up, you're metal on metal at that point.
Yeah.
So then you're wearing out that joint, adding play to that joint, and prematurely wearing out the piece of equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the operators here at Sargent are responsible for that maintenance and their equipment.
Oh, yeah.
So let's pick back up. You're out on the job. Continue with your day in the life, so to speak.
I checked everything over. Have it, you know, let's assume that it's already warmed up. I've had it running. Usually we start them before we go in for meeting when it's cold out. I go off to wherever my work area is. Right now, currently, I'm doing fill down in a pond. So I've got another operator out on the other end loading trucks. And then I've got a guy running rear dump that brings me material.
Okay.
And I've been doing a fill in the bottom of this pond, starting to build the slopes. Go through the day, lunchtime's at noontime. And then...
do you guys eat together or you just eat by yourself in your cab? Or?
You usually just eat by yourself in your cab. Okay. Depends. I mean, depends on who you're working with, I guess. You know what I mean? Yep.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yep, eat by yourself in your cab. It's kind of expected, not expected, but it's wanted that you're packing a lunch. That way you're not running to the store, spending half your break driving. You know what I mean? All of that stuff.
I do know what you mean.
You do, yeah.
I think I was a first or second year apprentice, and I would run for a break every day, and my boss pulled me aside one day, and you know the problem with that was it consumed a decent amount of my break to run.
Yep.
And we're not even going to touch on the fact of what I spent at a convenience store, to do that. But the problem is then you get back, and inevitably your break ends up being a little bit longer than it probably should be.
Yeah, you're walking back, still eating something.
Exactly. Exactly. And so I remember my boss pulling me aside, and there are so many things that I think of my younger self in life that I wish that I just would have been more aware of what was going on. But the reality is, I think as humans, we are naturally self-centered. We are naturally inwardly focused. It takes a lot to really look outside yourself. And, you talk about the crosswalk theme. I think when I started life, I was very much, I'm walking across the crosswalk and it's their problem to make sure that they don't hit me. That was my mindset. And I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't like knowing that, but I think, my boss pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, Josh, this is not okay."
Yeah.
And that actually had to be a little difficult for him to do because he had to deal with his frustration with me. He had to deal with the fact that, because we can tend, it's really amazing to me how we go through life and then we forget what it was like to be that person.
Absolutely.
And we also, in our minds, I think we rewrite the story a little bit. I wasn't like that. My wife helps me a lot with this, where I'll be like, I can't believe this person did this. It's like, why are they not thinking of that? And she's known me for a very long time. And she often will remind me of realities that I remember differently than they actually were. And she's like, no, you used to do that. Or, you looked at it that way. And I think that's a really important part of having perspective outside of ourselves.
Absolutely.
So you talked a little bit about, and I can even see on the behind you here, there's a picture of a steam shovel. You don't work with a steam shovel.
I do not.
And a dump truck there. But you do work with dump trucks and whatnot, and a team of people. Even though you work alone, you're still working together as a team. How does that work, and what does that look like here at Sargent? Like how do you guys operate together in that way?
A lot of projects are a group effort. Almost all projects are a big group effort.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think everybody has respect for every part of the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially for me, someone that came up through, if I had been, let's say I'd been an excavator operator for 20 years somewhere else, and then I got hired onto Sargent. I only ran excavator for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
I know how to be an excavator operator really well, right?
Yeah.
Before I was trusted in equipment all the time, I would run the rear dump, the off-road dump truck, right?
Yeah.
And then over time, I got good in the bulldozer. I had experience in the bulldozer, but they wanted me to go run the loader in the pit. I had no interest in running the loader in the pit, but they made me do it until I was good at it, so that one, I was rounded, and two, I know what the other side of that looks like.
That is so important.
Absolutely.
Whether you want to do it or not, you have a comprehension of what they're dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah. That's huge.
Yep.
That's wow.
And I've been lucky that I've spent time in excavator, bulldozer, loader, and all. I think mostly for that reason. They don't come out to me and tell me that.
Right.
But I have to assume operations is trying to round our people out in that way.
That's a pretty good point. I think that would have been good for me to learn when I was younger. One thing that I've really tried to apply to myself is assuming best intentions.
Yeah. It's a hard one.
Yeah, it is.
It's a hard one.
It is, but it's like you're talking about that right there. Well, I'm assuming. You say I have to assume that operations is doing this, and it's like, well, you don't have to assume. A lot of people don't. A lot of people just look at it from their perspective. But the reality is, it is better for us to assume best intentions than the other way, because we end up missing out on what's really going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, there are best intentions. There are intentions of doing that. We might not talk about it or communicate it, but one aspect of how you look at it as opposed to another totally changes the trajectory of where you go.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yep. Your overall feeling on it, everything.
Oh my goodness, it's just a better life.
It is. Yeah.
For sure. Favorite job? You've been here 7 years. Favorite job?
Boy.
And I don't mean what you're doing on the job. I mean the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say we took out a box culvert and replaced it with a bridge, and we did a stream reconstruction in Camden last year, and that was a really awesome project, honestly.
So for those who are listening, describe for us what was the awesomeness about it.
There were 2 different senior operators, one of which has retired since, that I got to work with on that project. That I look up to both of them a lot. I have a lot of respect for both of them, and it was really cool to be able to watch them work together.
Yeah.
And then toward the latter end of the project, they had both been sent to other jobs, and me and another guy that he's been at Sargent a little longer than I have. He is more experienced than I am, but we kind of, had to fill their roles as they went on to different projects, and it was cool to be able to witness it and then roll into it, and then me and that other operator pretty much finished that job out, actually building the road, doing all the finishing touches and everything all the way through to the end, which...
So you got to see it from beginning all the way to end?
Pretty much to end, awesome. Which that's cool. That's kind of a rarity, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the time that, you'll see the beginning or you'll see the end, but to be there the whole duration is pretty cool.
I think that probably really, well, I don't think probably. I know for me, that's something that when I got to experience, and like you said, and I don't know it matters what industry, sometimes that's a rarity because you have to go where the work is, you have to go with where you're needed.
Absolutely.
And when you're operating as a team, I mean, Sargent has almost 600 people here. You're going to have things juggled around and moved around, but you will get opportunities through your career to see a job from beginning to end. And when you do, that's something I can remember for me that gave me such a good perspective, concept, what's going on, why this matters. So that when I'm doing things on the beginning of a job, even if I'm not here at the end, I know, well, it's really important that I do this and lay this out right so that I'm not screwing the guy that comes after me.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's huge.
It is.
Yeah, and then that even goes back to the crosswalk analogy that you gave. It's like, you might not even see that guy that comes to finish it, but you're caring and acknowledging what's going on and what needs to happen. And when you get to see a job from this end to this end, that's really helpful to kind of have that whole picture in your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a bigger sense of accomplishment, I feel.
Yeah.
You could be there for the last third, and it's not the same feeling as being there for the whole thing,
I was talking with a young man on a project. They were electrical company. They were doing a hotel, and he was there putting infrastructure in when it was just a field, putting underground electrical conduits in and whatnot in the dirt. And they were putting final touches on like a fire alarm system on this job, and it was getting ready to open. And I walked through the hotel doors, and the doors parted and whatnot. And this young man was there, and I was talking with him, and he just was sharing with me how awesome it was. It was his first job where he got to experience, I was here putting the stuff in the dirt, and now I'm here handing the keys over to the client. And he just was so struck by that perspective and what that did for him, and understanding, wow, this is why this matters. This is why this is important.
Absolutely.
And anytime that you are doing a project, one of the coolest things about working for people, which is what we're all doing, is when you give someone what they ask for, when you're able to do what it is that you said you were going to do, and to provide that service in the industry. That's huge. That's huge.
Especially for them to come out and be more than satisfied with it is phenomenal.
Well, I think that we're all engineered or wired that way, that we want that, that satisfaction, whether it comes from our superintendent, our foreman, the client, or whoever it is. We really are desiring to be like, hey, Chandler, you did a great job here. And it's not wrong to want that. I think we're made that way.
Yep.
I feel fulfilled when someone's like, wow, you really represented our company well. You really communicated our story well. It's like, that means I've succeeded, and that feels good.
That's awesome. Yeah,
that really does. So one thing that we do here on our podcast, and I realize that you were thrown into this. I've done a couple of these where I'll be laying things out and we're planning this stuff out, and the executive team or whatever is like, well, we would really like you to talk with one of our craft guys or our field guys. And you guys literally just get thrown into this. And so you really don't know what's going on. So I apologize for your deer in headlights. And I don't know if that happened here. I'm not saying that that's what happened. Chandler might be saying that's what happened, but I'm not saying that. But I ask one question that I think really brings value to people, but it's really real. Okay. And it's intense. And not everybody answers it, and that's okay. But for me, I believe being open and real about mistakes that we've made, things that we didn't do right, or we've even failed at, which that's a little bit of a two-edged sword when I say that, because I don't believe that you fail if you don't give up.
Yep.
Failure only becomes failure when you decide to let it be. That's my opinion and my view on it. But I'm always asking people, well, would you be willing to share a mistake that you've made at work or in life that you feel like you learned from, that our listeners might be able to learn from as well? And so, Chandler, I'm going to ask you here, if you haven't figured it out already, what's a mistake that you've made at work or in life that you feel like you've learned from that you'd be willing to share with us? Take your time.
Yeah, you have to give me a moment on that one, I guess.
So I always ask people this question, and for me, I never am out of mistakes to share. And so I'll just share with you one of mine while you're kind of contemplating the thousands of mistakes that Chandler has made throughout life. So it was a joke,
That's
Chandler.
pretty accurate, probably.
But for me, I'm a passionate and emotional guy. And I really needed to step back as I became a leader or a superintendent or a foreman in these different roles. I had to become aware of my response. And is what I mean by that is I have damaged those who I would want to invest in, who I would want to build in, because I was unaware of my response. And being aware of, home life, things that are going on. And I can remember I found out some pretty horrible news. I was in a job meeting, and then I turned around and I responded to a mistake that someone had made in a way that was not uplifting, was not helpful. And I was actually functioning and operating unaware of the words that I was using and the way that I was speaking to that person. Tone, all of that stuff. And not just that, but recognizing your position of authority when you're speaking. And one of the biggest mistakes that I've made is not realizing that, and I'm not talking about audible volume, but the power of influence that my voice carries when this is my position or my title. I was just having a conversation with Herb earlier this morning, and he talked about how he went out to talk with someone on a job site, and it really affected them because of his position. His voice was no different, and who he was no different than anybody else on their executive team. But it was like, Herb Sargent came out to talk to me about this. It resonated with the guy, carried a greater weight. And so my mistake was I was not intentional, and recognizing all these personal things that were going on in my life, how they were affecting the way that I was speaking with this young person, and how that affected them. And I basically communicated to them in a way, and I dumped all of my garbage on them.
Yep.
And luckily, I became aware of that, and it was revealed to me because I have a team of people around me that they tell me the truth whether I want to hear it or not. And if I'm being really honest, I often don't want to hear it.
Yep.
At least not in the moment. It never feels good. I have literally been told things and confronted things and gone in my office and closed the door and cried because it was like a gut punch. I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
But like I said, mistakes only become failures if you leave them alone. And so I had to go to that individual and I had to say, listen, I am so sorry. And not as an excuse, but I needed to give them context of where I was and where I was coming from, to be like, I poured this out on you, and that was not for me to do. And I shouldn't have done that. And I hope that you can forgive me for that. And honestly, it's up to them if they want to or not. When we ask for forgiveness in situations, we can't demand it. That's the whole point of asking for it. Yeah. And the reality is sometimes you make mistakes in relationships that you can't fix. And that's unfortunate. And I've made some of those too. We're not going to talk about those on air. But the reality is you have to own those things. And then you just need to move on and keep moving. And so for me, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was not being aware of where I was emotionally.
Yep.
Because maybe I needed to just walk away and come back when I was at a different place. Actually, not maybe. I did. But I didn't do that. And so that's a pretty big mistake that I made in my career and in my life. And I just need to keep working at it. So what's a mistake, Chandler, that you've made in life or in work that you'd be willing to share with us?
First, I have to commend you for that. It takes a big person to be able to recognize that. So I have to commend you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. But to be honest, I didn't recognize it. My team did.
Yeah.
And they called me out on it. And we tend to think that this is why we can't do life or work alone. Because if we go it alone, this is our perspective.
Absolutely.
And this is really important. You can't see the photos on the wall behind you, but I can. I can't see what's behind me, but you can. And so we have different perspectives. So you can be like, Joshua, you don't know that you're affecting that person behind you in that way because you're not seeing that.
Yep.
But if you can speak to me about that, you can help give me that full picture. So I appreciate what you're saying. I just want to call out that I think it's something that we really do as a team wherever we are.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Yeah. I've made quite a few mistakes. I probably made more mistakes in the time I was a foreman than I have as an operator. It's a lot easier to make mistakes than that. And I think us even having this conversation, I'm kind of having more recognition to, my management around me's mistakes when they make them. But it would probably be, honestly, in my younger days when I was first starting out, not standing up for myself enough in those positions that you're talking about.
Come on.
Yeah, honestly, really.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's hard, especially when, the person that, I don't want to say talking down on you, but is, coming at you too fast or whatever, is in a place of power above you.
Yeah.
You're in a really hard position to be able to, get them to back down or recognize what they're doing. And especially, I'm not trying to stab at any of our management, but, a lot of our superintendents, they're not part of a team. Yeah. They're a one-man show that runs a job like it's its own company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is their job. Yeah. So I understand it. I totally get it. It's easy to see where all the stress would come from and things like that.
Yeah.
But in my younger days, especially as a foreman, I should have, I think, stood up for myself more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge. And people might look at that and be like, well, that's not really. No, it is. And I say this because there's a young man that I've been working with, and he is, how do I want to say this? Like I said, when I'm in a position of authority and I'm speaking, there's a different volume. There's a different intensity that you don't realize. Like I'm a founder, I'm a boss. It's like, well, I share with you what I think, but sometimes I might ask you a question, and I need to be aware that you might not actually feel like you can tell me what you think.
There you go.
And it's like, I was working with this young man, and I noticed that he never said no. And it triggered something in me. And then I realized, and so it'd be like, hey, can you work late on this job? And he never said no.
Yep.
It's like, yes. And listen, it's important to show up and to do the work. And
absolutely,
in construction, it matters. But the reality is, you have to be honest. Like, if your wife is pregnant and she needs you home, then you need to tell your superintendent, or you need to tell your foreman, I know this is important, but I have this going on.
Yep.
And so I talked with him one day, and I said, well, why is it that you never do this? And he's like, well, I don't feel like I can. It's just, if you're asking me that, then I have to do that. And I think that's pretty essential, that we need to think about, wow, I really need to articulate well. And then you need to learn different people and how they're wired. Like when I was young, those listening might find this shocking, I didn't have a problem being like, yeah, dude, don't talk to me that way. Like,
yeah.
That was not a problem that I had. But as a boss, as a foreman, as a superintendent, I had to learn, wow, I can't even ask this guy this because he won't be able to tell me no. And so I'm not going to ask him to do that unless I absolutely need him to do it.
Yep.
And the importance of that. And I think, to your point of learning to speak up, this is what I will say. I think that words really matter. And I think we live in a culture and a society where we actually try to dilute the meaning of words. And I have an old Webster's dictionary in my office that I love to just look through and be like, what did that word mean 100 years ago? What did that word mean? And I think it's really important to know origins and where they come from. And so for me, one of our core values in our company is we honor all. And the reason that I say that is you talk about respect. And I might ruffle some feathers here with this, but I'm sharing this related to what you were sharing because the people like yourself that are out there, I think, need to hear this. Respect is earned. Honor is given. And this is what I mean. When we say we honor all, there's a reason that we say honor and we don't say respect. Because I believe that respect is something that you must earn from me. Absolutely. And I must earn from you. But you are a human being. And that requires a certain honor. For my faith plays a huge part in my life and what I do. And I believe that every man and woman on the face of this earth has been made in the image of God. And for that reason, if I believe that, then you deserve that level of honor, which is pretty big honor, let me say.
It is, yeah.
And so with that belief, then I need to give you that. The best way I heard it described, someone was sharing with me, someone was elected president, and they had zero respect for them. But they were like, but I need to honor the position of president. And I was like, okay. So if you're in, and that was absolute, I mean, it resonated with me. I got it. And it's like, that position deserves a certain level of honor. Your superintendent, your foreman, there's a certain level of honor, but don't be confused with respect. Respect is something that they owe you as much as you owe them. And some people do not earn respect.
Nope.
That doesn't mean that you don't give them honor.
Yep.
And so you can confront that situation and have a conversation with them, and you can honor them. They might not feel respected. But that's why words matter. And that's why the definition matters and the way that we approach it matters. And so I think that what you're sharing there is really important. And know who you are. If you were wired like me, maybe take a beat before you share what you think. If you're wired more like Chandler and you're more one of those people that you're just going to let them tell you what to do and you're going to do it, maybe take a beat and be like, hey, I really need to speak up about this.
Yeah.
Because in all honesty, your superintendent or your foreman doesn't know if you don't open your mouth. We assume that they do, but that's because we're selfish and we're looking at things from our perspective.
Yep.
We're not looking at it from their perspective. Like you said, they're running an entire job. They are not thinking about how this affects Chandler. They're thinking about the job, and it is your responsibility to communicate that to them. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Chandler, one thing that you would encourage young people that might be going into the academy, that might be out there listening, and people listen all over the country. So there aren't people in Maine here, but what would you encourage people to do in finding a career and where they want to go, whether they're in Maine, related to the industry, wherever they might be? What would be your one thing?
In finding a career that they're going to... finding a career that you're going to enjoy, I mean, you have to know what you like, I guess, is step one.
Yeah.
Do you like being outside? Do you like creating things? Do you like,
what was the number one thing for you going through the academy here?
Probably the number one thing for me especially coming out of the academy was, paying attention to your opportunities and being able to recognize opportunities, I guess.
Ooh, that's good.
So I've seen a lot of guys that they get right on the right on the cusp of greatness. They're right on the verge of moving up, and whether that's management or whatever, and the company starts giving them little pieces of responsibility that are extra, that aren't expected of their peers.
Yeah.
And especially with younger guys, they take that and they look down their nose at it like it's a punishment. Like, the old saying, a good worker and you know where I'm going with this. A good worker and a bad worker, and the good worker ends up getting more work, right? It doesn't work that way, realistically. You're going to get that extra piece of responsibility or whatever, and eventually that's recognition.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a young guy and look at, extra work and for it to equal a recognition up in your head.
Come on.
You know what I mean?
Come on. I want to ask you one more thing. I think I just said I want to ask you one more thing, but last thing that I want to ask you, I'm looking at this wall of the history of Sargent. And the last name that you guys have underneath it says 100% employee owned. What does it mean to Chandler to be an employee owner of Sargent?
It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah?
It really is. Yeah. It, if the company, I go out of my way to make sure that I don't break anything.
Yeah.
I don't mess up a piece of equipment. No one around me gets hurt.
Yeah.
Ultimately, at the end of the year, I make more money.
Yeah.
No two ways about it. I do. It also means that when our resources are used, let's say they buy a new piece of equipment. Mm-hmm. That's exciting to me. That's not just like, oh, well, the company bought a new.
Right.
It's like, well,
it's your equipment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one day I'll probably get the opportunity to run that brand new piece of equipment. It's exciting. It's important. And I think it changes everybody's mindset in the field quite a bit.
Yeah.
Big time.
Where do you want to see, Herb Sargent started this organization a century ago. Where do you want to see Sargent a century from now?
A century from now, hopefully we're global, like Chimbro.
Wow.
Honestly. I don't think we're too crazy far away from that happening.
Yeah.
Especially if a century out, I think that's a very realistic opportunity.
I think one of the coolest things about Sargent and your story, because it's your story as well.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Not a little bit. 100% employee owned.
It is. Yep.
100% employee owned. And so Herb Sargent's story is now Chandler's story.
Yes, sir.
And that story matters because one individual has the power to impact a community, a city, a state, a country, global.
Yeah.
That's why that matters. That's why that matters, because you moving dirt is impacting people on a global scale, or it can. And the way that you do that today, that matters. And so if you're listening, the way that you do your work today, that is impacting someone. It is influencing someone. And you have a decision of whether or not you're going to impact them in a positive way or a negative way. And you need to do that with intention. So just like Chandler stepped up to the line here today and had a real and honest conversation with me, I challenge you, if you're listening to this and you're hearing about Sargent's story, recognize that just like Herb Sargent started this a century ago, you have the ability to step up to the line and start your own story and see where it is a century from now. So step up to the line with us and lift the view of the skilled trades. Chandler, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
It was a good time.
Great job.